The Wednesday shows for the employees started early, I think in the 30s, as a relaxation tool for the employees to just come and relax during their lunch hour and actually dance if they wanted to.
And they'd have half a dozen of these guys blowing horns, and at noon. They'd give a couple of 20-minute concerts at noon, and Fred encouraged this, and I guess Harry did too. I don't know exactly about that.
And they played for noon-hour dances. Well, of course, most of the guys were in the service, but some of the ladies would dance with each other, And I don't remember any fellas dance with any. But then they added a soloist, and they added a girls' trio, and pretty soon they got the idea of a chorus. And we had about 24 or 25 in the chorus, usually an even number so that we could, if we did choreography, we had a partner. And then we started doing concerts, two concerts a year, a spring and a fall concert.
And at the special Christmas show, all of the medical department was allowed to come up. Normally, they would have their lunch at their desk and in their little cubies or whatever, but they always came to the Christmas show and the Easter show.
The shows that they had on weekends, the gym was packed because that's when the families were invited to come in, or the relatives, to see what everybody was talking about. Oh, they were always packed. And then at the end of the show, the band would play and the people could dance. That's how they had snacks. They had snacks for you to eat. It was a full evening besides what we did on stage. Oh, it was full families that came back.
Like a big variety show.
It was like a big variety show around the clock.
They started with the orchestra and evolved into the regular shows. We did 3 shows every Wednesday. We'd leave our job at 10:45 and be on stage at, I think, 11:15. Do 3 little shows with the little breaks in between. I think they were about 20-minute shows. And I think we finished at 1:45. Went and changed out of our costumes and into our street clothes and into the cafeteria by 1 o'clock so we could get fed and back to our departments by 1:30.
People that came in from our good customers that would come in, we would invite them in on Wednesday so that they could see the orchestra and chorus. And these people couldn't believe that once the show was over, that the people that were performing actually were going back to a punch press department or an office job or switchboard operator. They thought that these were all professional people.
When I was taking applications, one of the things you would ask is, and what are your hobbies? Playing musical instruments. So do a little recruiting at the application desk to find out. And Tony would, you call Tony up and say, I've got a gentleman here that plays drums. Would you like to meet him?
There's a lot of the shows that Tony put on were his original shows. He did copy a lot of things from like Broadway productions, and he followed themes. And here's another story about family. He also married a girl from the chorus.
Tony wrote most of the arrangements in the beginning, and then Ralph Herman came in. He needed better scores, and he couldn't do all the work. It just got beyond him, So Ralph would write the arrangements. When you looked at the score, you've got trombones, trumpets, piano. From the score, Tony would copy each individual instrument. Everything had to be copied, hand-copied. That was his work.
For each concert, we would have 5 or 6 separate costumes, sequences that would go together, and it was a show that lasted at least 2 hours. The first costumes that the women wore when they started kind of dressing up were from Peg's shop.
We took, I believe, 4 tours to the East Coast, sang on the steps of the Treasury building, and went through, of course, we traveled through Indiana and Pennsylvania and Ohio and did programs on the way. And then we sang at the Waldorf Astoria for the manufacturers, National Association of Manufacturers, where Fred Loke was very active in.
They one time went to Battle Creek, Michigan. One of our customers there, Kellogg Company, literally thought so much of it that they created their own group. And that fostered really a better relationship over the years with many of our customers.
The Orchestra and Chorus was a great promotion for us. We used to send it, they came up to Canada one time, that's where I got to know them better. And especially in Canada, the first reaction to this Orchestra and Chorus was, God, if Raider wants us to go, I guess we better go. And these are the distributors. But after they went under some duress, they were quite enthusiastic about it. But we used to send the Orchestra and Chorus to Detroit and Chicago and the Machine Tool Show and stuff like that. And it was a very good promotion for the company.
I had them stop the bus down on Farmer Street, and they got all their instruments and got all they could up on the top, and they came down the road playing How Dry I Am. And the neighbors said to my wife, if there was a dry soul in the lot, I didn't see him.
At the time that it folded, it was economically there were some hard times. There were a lot of people being laid off. But then Tony was approaching retirement anyways, you know. And it was getting to the point where it had such a professional caliber that, you know, you can only go up and not down. And he knew that to continue it would mean hiring musicians that could play the caliber of the arrangements and music. After some pretty heavy thinking, he thought it was time to retire. He was ready. He was ready to retire at that point.
We were going through a very bad year, and we had several levels of layoff. And Tony Worth was running the Orchestra and Chorus and had forever. And Tony was well past retirement age. He wasn't anxious to retire, but he was well past the age. And I found out that we were hiring professional musicians from town to fill in on presentations for the Orchestra and Chorus when we had over 1,000 people on layoff. And I thought, boy, if Willie finds out about this, I'm dead meat. And so we had a talk with Tony and with Jack Matthews, other people that were involved with it, and decided that Tony should probably retire and we'll just not have it for a while. Well, you know how that works. We never got it started again. But it was just a wonderful thing.
Jack Matthews, Bud Whitney came into one of our rehearsals and told us. And we had to do a show that day. It was very emotional. Now I'm going to start crying, and I don't want to be on tape crying, but we had to sing, I think it was a Christmas show. And so we were doing all this beautiful Christmas music and trying to get the notes out through this kind of thing. So it was very sad.
It was the hardest decision, one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make, was to close down the Orchestra and Chorus, but I didn't think we had any recourse. I was truly hopeful that it was only temporary, and if Tony hadn't been his age, I'm sure it would have been temporary. But we really didn't have a champion to carry on after a year or so when things picked back up, and we probably could have started it again on a maybe a lesser scale, but it was a tough decision, emotionally.
Also, that was 1982, and 1985, Rockwell bought Allen Bradley and had facilities all over the world, none of which had an orchestra and chorus, and would not have been able to justify having that kind of thing in one facility without having it in all. So, you know, you can see the sense of it, but it was very sad.